Everyone online's going, gee, Kirsten's looking a bit different these days. So I'm just going to assist Kirsten. This is a joint project that we've been doing. So we sort of had a quick meeting last week and we said, guess what, there should really be two of us up here today. So I was the ring-in. That's why Uncle Bob's sitting over there smiling, because he didn't have to come up here. But he had the big job on Monday, so you win, Uncle. So as the slide says, this research is about Indigenous-led decision-making for reef restoration and adaptation in the Great Barrier Reef. It's a joint project between our team at AIMS, IP team, and social scientists from CSIRO, Kirsten and team, and the next slide will show us a picture of the team. And a bit like Uncle Bob, I'll read this, otherwise I'll get it wrong. We want to acknowledge the central role of the Reef Restoration and Adaptation Science and Crown of Thorns Starfish Technical Working Group, who provide oversight, guidance and input. Essentially, if those fellas didn't give us some money, we wouldn't be able to do these workshops. Hey, shut up. Okay, so there's some pictures of our team members. A couple of them are away, but probably two or three of us you'll see in the room today. But essentially, most of these works, and what we're hearing all through the week, is if you don't have great teamwork, then you can't achieve anything. And you've all heard that saying, there's no I in team. Well, that's how our team works. So we all step up and we all assist each other. Next slide. It's really around, what we're looking at is, okay, what are we going to do here? So what this project is about is looking at future deployments through the lens of a traditional owner. So we've heard a lot of great projects about RRAP projects, and when RRAP was sort of first developed, all these great minds came together and said, okay, how can we save the reef? But we didn't have a lot of consultation with traditional owners in that process. And probably one of the things we thought about was, well, how do we get traditional owners involved in this space? So the whole idea of this project is looking at not just biophysical characteristics of the reef, but the biocultural risk and opportunities. So as Gav said today, we are part of land and sea country, so it's about recognising that, and that's what this framework's looking at developing. I hope you can all read that, especially you fellas down the back. So this is a little slide around how do we get this to happen. It's really about partnerships, and as we've heard all week, partnerships drive success. So for our work, it was about developing partnerships with the CSIRO crew, and then fellas getting to know how we do our work, and then talking to community. The main way that we're looking at doing this sort of stuff is through developing workshops with traditional owners. Which I think is the next slide. There we go. Okay, so we essentially ran 3 workshops in the southern Great Barrier Reef, the central Great Barrier Reef, and the northern Great Barrier Reef. This workshop here is on Uncle Bob's country, down at Wapawara, Kanami Island, and I think that was that the third workshop, Uncle? Yeah, third workshop. So the first one was up north here, and I think the second one we had in the central area. The whole idea of those workshops is to enable knowledge exchange, and really that's what it's about. We're trying to find out from traditional owners what they think about RRAP, what they think about these interventions, and we had some great conversations. We talked about FPIC. We developed a few reports. I don't know whether or not they're public yet, but a bit like Dave, don't show anything till next week. They're only joking. We had 2 summary reports as well, but the main thing with these workshops was we got to hear from 15 traditional owner groups around their experiences. Some of the key things that came out of the workshops was supports for traditional owners in leadership. So we spoke a little bit about leadership this morning. What we want this framework to do is give traditional owners the steering wheel, the driver's seat, to be able to say to institutions, hey, we want to have a say in this stuff. It's about acknowledging intellectual Indigenous cultural intellectual property. So sometimes in conversations you have with traditional owners, they might give you knowledge. It's about, well, who owns that knowledge? If I take something down in a notepad under the intellectual property, I own that, but I'm not going to go sharing that unless I've got Uncle's permission. So it's around developing ICIP in decision making. We wanted clear information for traditional owners on the proposed technologies. As Uncle has said, Uncle Philip and Uncle Bob, the earlier you talk to traditional owners in any project, not just RRAP stuff, but the better. So it's about giving them clear information on what's happening. And the other thing it's around is providing future opportunities for traditional owners. Quite often when you go and talk to community, us older fellas will say, well, it's about that next generation. What opportunities is there for the youngsters out there? So that's what we're hoping will come out of the framework. Now I'll get Kirsten to share a little bit about the framework. You did have permission to clip me on the back of the head if I talk too long. I forgot to tell you that.
Thank you. So it's, oh, that one. Great. Hi, everybody. I'm Kirsten McLean. I'm a social scientist, human geographer from CSIRO, and I just want to say it's such a great privilege to work in this project team, and a real honour to be involved in this research, particularly through the workshops working with different traditional owners across the Great Barrier Reef. I have to say the importance of the work that we're doing was really crystallised during that third workshop on Konomi, where I had we all had personal and upfront experiences with Wapabara Sea Country, and I'm thinking in particular when we all had to hop off the ferry into waist-deep water to walk ashore onto Konomi, and there was a lot of laughs and it was a lot of fun, but I could really feel the salt water and on my skin, and taste and smell the sea air, and then as I crunched up the beach, I kind of looked around and really struck by the passion and the commitment of everybody to come and spend their weekend to discuss the issues and challenges and opportunities and interests they have around RRAP. And then Uncle Bob welcomed us to his country, and on behalf of all Wapabara traditional owners, and then asked us to literally stand in the footprints of the elders. So that was really moving for me. Later, we then heard stories through the workshop about people's connection to country, to place, the aspirations they have for the current generations and future generations, the importance of cultural revitalisation. We also heard discerning discussions about, potential opportunities for RRAP technology, future potential deployment on sea country. And so, again, I kind of was really struck by the importance of this kind of work, how we're working hard to build trust, to build relationships, and we've heard a lot about this today and yesterday as well. And importantly, working across different knowledge systems and different knowledge traditions to co-produce new knowledge to support Indigenous decision-making in this space. So I now want to, on behalf of the team, provide a quick overview of what we're currently calling the draft biocultural framework. This name could change. We've developed this framework through all the information and knowledge that's been shared through those 3 workshops, through rigorous debate and discussion and critique within our project team, and through guidance and input from the technical working group. I'd just like to say that because this framework is still in development, please no photographs at this point. So the ultimate intention of the biocultural framework is to put a cultural lens over the Great Barrier Reef, and that's what we heard very strongly from all traditional owners at workshops. You can see on this slide that, again, as everyone was talking at the workshops and so on, and was in our team, that law is at the heart of all decision-making, and that decision-making is about linking customary heritage, connections, knowledge, obligations, caring for country, diverse values, and so on, and that decision-making has to operate within existing sea country governance systems, and acknowledging that there's a suite of tools that have already been developed out there, led by traditional owners, and the biocultural framework needs to fit within that context. You can see some of the examples are the Strong People, Strong Country framework, existing Sea Country plans, Reef 2050 TO implementation plan. So this diagram shows the concepts and the themes in this draft framework, and following the lead of the workshop participants, and certainly resonates in the academic literature as well, the framework takes a strength-based approach to consider the kinds of opportunities that may be enabled via potential future deployment of RRAP technologies on sea country. And again, at the heart of this framework is a focus on law as fundamental to everything, and protocols and agreements to care for the reef together. So there's 6 themes that kind of surround that, and this is focusing on, you know, working together in partnerships, getting people on country via diverse opportunities, developing transition capabilities so people can actually grasp those opportunities. Importantly, of course, protection of Indigenous cultural and intellectual property and processes for prior and informed consent. Technology and innovation, of course, RRAP. And also importantly, as we heard Sue mention earlier about the provision of adequate information for decision making. So the idea is that the framework can be used as a decision making tool by traditional owners, and it's organised around the central concept with these 6 themes. Each of these themes has got a discussion topic. And then it has a matched set of probing questions to aid in discussion, and then a set of existing or potential resources, tools or activities that might aid in decision making or even be the result of deliberation through the process. So you can see it's quite comprehensive. So I just want to take one theme quickly and work through that with you, just as an example of how this might be used. So the theme of working together. As you can see, it has a set of 3 discussion topics. They're currently posed as questions, but maybe we'll change that. And if we take the second topic as an example, you know, is this a good opportunity to build relationships with partners? So the idea is that a group will get together and maybe they've been approached by RRAP to consider a certain technology on their sea country. That's one example of how this might be used. And they can get together and kind of deliberate and discuss amongst themselves what might be the way forward. So in relation to, is this a good opportunity to build relationships with partners? The specific questions that might aid that discussion are, you know, who are the potential partners? Do we know them and do we trust them? And does their work, past or present, align with our interests? Okay, so there's the potential list of potential tools and resources that may aid that discussion. So that might include, for example, a list of project partners or staff, discussions of past experiences with other TOs about the reputation and practices of those potential partners, the need perhaps for those partners to have cultural competency training. And so an outcome of those deliberations could, for example, be a guide for how we want those potential partners to work with us in this context. So I think, yep, right, we're getting up to our time, but I think the key message, I think, is that we're quite proud of what we've done and how we've worked together to develop this tool. It's very much an ongoing process, so it still needs to be tested through some case studies and refined. So the next step for us is to do these place-based assessments of technologies with traditional owners, and in fact we're quite excited because we're meeting with Llama at 1 o'clock today to start doing that. Our work is already having impact in the Great Barrier Reef, so we're using it to inform the risk identification process in the independent risk review group. A possible future uses that we're hoping will happen as well is using it to assess capacity building opportunities for pilot deployments and guiding traditional owner advice giving in the pilot deployment planning. Thank you.
Well, I'd like to thank both our speakers, and again, I think this is something you're going to have to pick up at lunchtime. Plenty of food for thought and questions then, but thank you both.